Here we are. Yay. Coming to you live from the Hartley Center for Mindfulness and Self-Mastery in the south of France. Wahahaha. Yabba dabba doo. I'm coming to you from the village of Puy-Vert. I am Dr. Valerie Renee Shepard, and I'm excited to be here with you for another segment of my weekly Hump Day Happy Chat. How are y'all doing out there? I'm looking at all the cool stuff, and I'm always fascinated by something that I do all the time, which is technology. And it's hilarious that as much as I practice and try, sometimes still baffles the heck out of me. Anyway, here we are. Hump Day Happy Chat starting now. It's so good to be here. I've just returned to my home, my home in the south of France, and I'm digging it. And there's still a lot of I's to dot, T's to cross, a lot of things that I don't know can be dotted and crossed, a lot of linkages that I was absolutely positively sure I knew how to make this happen that ain't happening. But isn't that what the exquisite life is made of? The things that connect and the things that don't? Isn't that what the life that we love living is really made of? Like, it's funny because this question, I think it goes right along with today's topic. This question of, well, how do I know that this is all there is? I mean, that was a real seminal question for me. Is this really my life? Why is this my life? Should it be my life? There's a lot missing. This was my conversation with myself that kind of started me on this path when I left corporate America back in, I guess, 2006, 17 years ago. Woo. What on earth is happening here? Why? Most importantly, it was why. Why is what I'm experiencing the experience of my life? Why are the things that I see myself do and say the things I choose to do and say? And are they supposed to be those things? I mean, those are profound questions. I encourage and invite everyone to be asking yourself these questions, to be really checking in with yourself throughout your life. You know, one of my favorite quotes, if you get any emails from me, one of my favorite quotes, 6th century dramatist, Roman, so is, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. And to me, that's the point of the Hump Day Happy Chat. It's the point of the Hartley Center for Mindfulness and Self-Mastery. It's the point of my Bliss Acceleration course. It's the point of the Bliss Collective. The whole idea is, as soon as you think you've nailed it, you're slipping potentially into a point of stasis that isn't serving you, or heaven forbid, backwards. Because the world doesn't just stop. The world doesn't get to a point where it says, okay, been there, done that, got enough expansion happening, don't need to do anything else. Nope, it still looks for, I don't think it does it like an anthropomorphic being, but you get what I'm talking about. The world is in creation mode. And so this whole idea today, which came to me as, because I have been living in some ebbs. You know, I did recently a Hump Day Happy Chat that was about, I'm going to have a good cry. And I've had a couple of them. People on the airplane who were watching me were probably wondering what was going on in that overnight flight. A good cry is a part of allowing the ebb to be whatever it is. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me just back up and start it over again. So I'm so happy to have you with me. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. And the question for today is, are you in ebb or are you in flow? Are you in ebb or are you in flow? So, ebb and flow, according to Oxford Languages, the idiom ebb and flow together is talking about this recurrent rhythmical pattern of coming and going, of regrowth, of repeated increases and decreases, inward and outward movement, rises and falls. It's often associated most with the ocean. In fact, it was the term ebb and flow was first used in the 1800s to describe the rise and fall or the in and outflow of the tide. So what the rhythmic part is how it kind of does its thing. When you think of ebb and flow, when I think of ebb and flow, I think of the infinity symbol, the sideways 8. It has a period of its coming into its waxing, and then it has a period of it going into its waning. Even talking about the waxing and the waning of the moon is the ebb and flow of the moon's cycling. Pretty cool. And when you think about it, when I facilitate, I'm constantly looking at the conversation I'm having with an audience or with a workshop group or even with an individual private client. The ebb and flow of the conversation, where the words and the sentences are kind of different types of waves in the ocean of the entire experience. The waves can be gentle, lapping the beach. They can be rushing. They can be tumultuous. Conversations ebb and flow all the time. And when you're willing to really notice what you notice about you being you in your life, about the way your life is unfolding, you probably have noticed that there is ebbing and flowing inside almost everything happening all day long. The morning rush ebbs into a little bit of a lull around lunchtime, maybe before lunch siesta, and then you get back into the busyness of the day. And obviously these are different across different cultures, but in the West, especially that afternoon lunch break or midday lunch break ebbs into the siesta, then back into the busyness, then it ebbs back again into the slowing down for home. Getting into sleep is another ebb. Meals have an ebb and a flow. Making of the meal. Traffic ebbs and flows. Work ebbs and flows. Sports matches. I'm a big sports hound. And I landed in France right at the beginning of the Rugby World Cup, and I am a rugger hugger from since before I turned 20. So I am digging all the rugby that I'm seeing. And so inside a match, there's an ebb and a flow. People talk about the momentum shifting. There's also inside a big tournament like this, there are days when there's no teams playing. That's an ebb. And there are days when there are a couple matches happening. That's a big kind of flow. Obviously, with sexual encounters and the sex act itself, there's ebb and flow, money and fortune, stock market seasons. I mean, it's practically impossible to find an aspect of life that doesn't conform somehow to this idea of ebbing and flowing. So the title today, enough of the ebb. I want some flow. Enough of the ebb. Bring on the flow. Enough of the ebb. What happened to my flow? What happened to my flow? And the ebb is not exactly the part we desire the most. Why? Because by itself, ebb means to flow back or flow away. It's a marking of a decline, a fading, a decaying. There's something kind of that we don't want to have happen, a reduction in flow happening as a lead into the flow. And so the question that I asked in the summary was, do you find yourself sort of bracing because you kind of intuitively, instinctually know that the flow always has to turn into an ebb? And so what's the point of getting excited about the flow? And how can you truly enjoy the flow when you just keep ending up going back to the state of ebb? Like, what's the point of that? Well, let's talk about some of the characteristics of the flow state. Like, how would you characterize the flow state? It's pretty, in my experience, pretty miraculous, the flow state. It's pretty special. It's like, I feel like I'm alive. See how many of these characterize you? I feel in a wholehearted place, like I'm connected to my heart, to my emotions, to my physical body in other ways. I'm connected to the plants, and like I can see like the little glittery, the little glittery parts of the sunlight when it hits like particulate matter that's kind of floating through the air, probably pollen, but fortunately for me, I don't have allergies. I feel incredibly confident. I feel like inspired. I can imagine things happening. And as I ploppity plop through my life, the good things are happening. I I can sense like, oh, something good's around the corner. And when I turn the corner, boom, there's a friend. Or when I turn the corner, boom, there's just the shirt I was looking for in the store window. Or it's like that kind of thing. I can just hear sort of like beautiful music playing in my ear, in my head. I feel like I could bottle up this feeling and shower it onto myself, sprinkle it onto my food, and spread it everywhere I go so that I can give it away and watch other people benefit from this flowing with life, not just in it, but with it, being one with life and all it has to offer and experiencing the juicy goodness all the time. And that's a pretty big phrase, all the time. Because multiple sources talk about a 3D or third dimension, 3D level of flow. Has a beginning and an end. I've seen several places where they say 30 minutes to maybe 2 hours, and that's the most anybody can really keep themselves in flow. It's just a focused state of like having dots connect and things coming to you as you work or paint or draw or write. And I think that's fantastic. I love it. And I'm not about 3D anymore. This stage of the evolution of my consciousness, which is what I write about and teach about, is about carrying myself, propelling myself, delivering myself unto a 5D experience of my life, or even higher. But the point is higher than third dimension, the density of the third, the of this world, not just in it. And in this world and of this world, yeah, things kind of have a beginning and an end, not in the timelessness of the fifth dimension. So one of the questions when you talk about enough of this ebb and I want more flow is you got to ask yourself, if you're anchored in the 3D, probably ain't going to happen. You're probably going to be stuck in the cyclical nature of the third dimension. Things are on and then they're off. It's the duality. Highs and lows, ins and outs, forwards and backwards. That's the duality of the third. The duality in of the dimension of the third. And so if you want to be in a place where maybe there's non-dual awareness in you, maybe there's a non-dual anchoring by you into a higher plane, that's where you get to start thinking about enough of the ebb. I'm going for flow, baby. And I'm going for continuous flow, baby. And let's make it happen. Or in the dimension of the third, let's just sit back and receive. Dimension of the fifth and higher. Let's just sit back and receive. What about that? How does that feel? How does that feel? So 5D sources like Thrive Global and others like yours truly talk about flow being a continuous state that you get to control, manage, contribute to, navigate. That flow can be more continuous than only coming after there's been an ebb. And if you want to do it, watch some more of the Hump Day Happy Chats for some guidance that will help you do these next couple of things. So living in a state of flow as the flow that you were created to be beyond the third dimension requires you to be diligent about the nature of your thoughts, your words, and your actions, and to consciously focus on creating high vibration energy from the inside out. High vibration energy from the inside out. Now, what I was doing when I was preparing myself for the ebb that would come after every flow in my past, in my Wayback Machine, was what I was preparing for, was conditioning myself to just believe this is the way it is and it's always going to be this way. And the best thing I can do for myself is be prepared. I thought that's what was the way you lived. You just get yourself prepared because that's what's going to happen. Living well means preparing yourself for the ebb that comes after the flow. That's like socking away your walnuts if you're a squirrel when winter's coming, because you want to make sure you don't run out. Well, even the idea of running out is lack and limitation. Lack and limitation is density of the third. There is no lack and limitation in higher planes. Are you with me? Are you with me? Are you getting that? We are co-creators. So we create the ebb and the flow. We are the flow. The flow and the ebb are one and the same in a non-dual world. Staying in a flow state means consciously generating the energy that aligns with that state from within you. It requires vigilance, it requires understanding, and it requires the same kind of training that an Olympic athlete would do. It's interesting, Olympic athletes and other high-performing quote-unquote athletes, whether they be accountants or authors or actors or paragliders or whatever high performance a person is doing, requires commitment and training over long periods of time. But for some reason, many people just think happiness is just supposed to happen. That joy just plops them on the head or plops on their head. The peace just needs to happen out there, and then I can access it and be all cozy with it. And that's not necessarily by accident. We've been trained this way to believe that that's how life works, outside in. We've been conditioned to hook into this third dimension as though it's our life-giving force, rather than it's part of the movie of our lives, not necessarily what our life is supposed to be made of. Just an incidental comma, semicolon, or period. Not always the exclamation point. Being in the flow, in your state of flow, as opposed to a circumstantial experience or circumstantial dynamic of flow. Can you feel the difference? State of flow is I'm in it all the time. I'm flowing through life. That's where I am now, and getting better and better at being that. Circumstantial flow is, well, some good things happened. I'll call that flow. Bad things happen. I must be in the ebb. Interesting. You're creating it. Uh-oh. Personal responsibility. Uh-oh. You oxygenate your blood, which oxygenates the brain, oxygenates the heart. You create the slowing down, which creates an opportunity for things to come into coherence with the heart. And you give yourself a little pause, and you can make it however it needs to be, depending on the roller coaster ride that you're on. So sometimes my breathing pause is a minute, sometimes it's 5. Or I'm coming into a beautiful synchronistic harmony with me, the instrument that I am, the powerful alchemist that I am. The alchemy is turning base experiences into golden opportunities. And so the breathing is the bridge, that's the beginning of the bridge that makes that transformation happen. Then, whenever we're in this place where we're saying, I got to go to a higher vibration, one of the number one things you can do to move yourself back into a place where you can access a state of flow is gratitude, is demonstrating your gratitude, your appreciation, your gratefulness. So when you can be grateful for what already is, not for what you're hoping for, not for what they said they were going to give you, not for what's going to happen after you work really, 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 really hard and retire, for what is right now, in all of its ugliness or beauty or scariness or debilitated physiological parts, whatever is already is. You can't really wrestle with that. It is right now. And so to greet that with the gratitude, we breathe, we go to more companionship,